Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Oregon's 1-1. Change up again, and that's belted deep to right field. Going back on it is Brennan at the wall. See you later! 3-run home run by the big man, Yordan Alvarez. And the Astros lead it 4-2.
1-2 to Henderson. Right on left. Here's the pitch. Gunner rips this to right. Way back it goes, and that baby's gone. Into the Orioles bullpen. A solo homer for Henderson, and it's 3-0 Baltimore.
The 1-2, and it's hit deep to right center field. Christian going back, so's Tatis. Gone into the Rockies bullpen. Ryan shot to right field that just cleared that high wall. Ryan McMahon with a home run, and the Rockies tack on.
Yeah, I walked across it once or twice, but that was my first time to be out there. They did a great job. Even just standing on it, like, it's just how much better it is to stand on it, like landing on it when you fall down. And like I said, the safety is, they did a great job. That D-ball came in and did it. And Archie Balance and his team here have done a good job of getting the field ready to go.
Well, looky here.
What up?
The band is back together.
Holy smokes.
We just had a short stint of, we had a quick falling out during vacation.
So I counted. It was 11 straight days.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Yeah, that's never happened to me before.
Where you had 2 weeks and...
Yeah, because typically, so every year that I've done this and I've been coaching, I'll take 6 or 7 days, right, in a row, because there's some sort of team camp, right? There's install, like usually it's the third or the last weekend in July. So I'm like outro, right? And I don't take vacation, obviously, during the year. So I used to always lose it. I was like, nah, man, probably about 6-7 years ago, I just decided, I'm like, you know what? It's install. I got to be there at the beginning.
And that's what's funny. Vacation for you is not vacation.
Yeah, I haven't left. Yeah, I haven't. So full disclosure, I haven't been on a vacation, I bet, and I didn't even take a honeymoon. Right, so I mean, it's
that's crazy.
Not a one. Not since
you're just saving up for a big trip.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get there.
You guys will probably end up going to Europe and spending
I'm just not a Europe guy. So it's
you're gonna go to cooking school.
I gotta get there. So
culinary.
I mean, you gotta get to tomorrow. So like the install with camp and being around the guys was cool. Then we had the camping deal. We were out at the river. I think what is it? I almost said Two Brothers. It's not Two Brothers. I'm back in rare form, man.
Three Sisters?
It's two something. Two lakes, two rivers. I think maybe it's just two rivers.
Sounds right.
So then we came back and we had Monday, Tuesday. He wanted to continue to do install, and we're just changing some of our practice routine. And then
quickly here, because I'm a little confused. What's install?
So basically starting from the beginning. So like, let's say we'll do like
what it means.
Yeah, exactly. So, whether it's coverage or offensive, hey, today we'll do inside run game or, whatever. Right. And so we're starting from the basics, like teaching, and, which is pretty cool because, you got some film time, and I mean, we run it like camp. And so even though we were just in helmets and half rack, I looked at one of our coaches and I'm like, fudge. I said, this feels like, and I'm dead dog serious. I said, this feels like a prep Wednesday week of practice. Like we had to back the guys down a little bit, but we're so much further ahead than we were a year ago. Because a year ago, I'm not going to kid you. Like, I was like, we're just not very physical. Like, this is going to be a problem, right? But I'm okay with where we're at right now. And
so if a year ago you weren't happy and you won, now you.
But
are
I'm just telling you. And I think Coach Lamanji got mad at me during the camping trip. But I said something to the effect of, I'm like, guys, I'm just going to be honest. Maybe I'm misremembering. This is exactly what I said. I said, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't remember us being that good last year. And I was just being honest. We kind of schlepped our way through through
regular
prep.
season.
Yeah, just in general. We weren't sharp against Kearney. We should have got beat by Millard South.
When you lost a game, you should have won.
We got whipped by North Platte. We kind of limped through. We were down at the half against Southwest. Like it wasn't crisp. We couldn't get off the field on third down. We couldn't run the ball. I'm like, I'm just kind of putting it out there.
Talented, and you're saying.
So afterwards, we're just kind of sitting around talking before the boys go to sleep, and Coach Samanji comes over to me and he goes, "Hey, we were 12-1 and did win state last year." And it was like,
and that's kind of where my
head was like 45 minutes removed from what I said to him, right? And I was like, "Hey, man," I said, "I get it." My point was, like,
there's room to grow.
Plenty, like plenty of room to grow.
And if you win last year, that's actually probably a good thing to instill into the players.
Because it's just like, told our guys, stay off of social media and, this, that, and the other. And like, we don't have any problems getting motivated. So so there'll be no repeat deal, especially with the way our schedule lays out. But it's just like, then Wednesday, I flew out early, like it's the first flight to Indy, and I went straight to Lucas Oil. So that was 2 days. Then got back last Friday. I didn't get back until like 12:40 on Thursday. Friday I called
at night,
you guys.
Yeah,
okay. You guys. And then called in early on the show Friday, went back to Westside that morning. And then Sunday I was in Lincoln all day for the barbecue, and yesterday
back there for practice.
Yeah. I should have stayed the night, but I've only spent the night in Lincoln. I don't know if I've really spent the night in Lincoln. I've gotten up like I've gone to check in at the hotel for, like, let's say BTN, so I can get there early in the morning and my room will be available. So I'll do like the coaches meeting on Fridays where you get together.
Sure.
I'll check in and then I'll go back to Omaha. I'll come back here because usually I'm coaching. Then I'll leave at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning to go to the hotel, and I can already get in.
Right.
Like,
that's smart.
It makes for long days, but I just start prep, or whatever it is that I'm doing. And like now I'm here, so that was my vacation.
The night staycation.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I called in yesterday or whatever, and I forget, like, those small segments are small segments because
it was over in a blink of an eye.
Oh yeah, you could go forever. I heard the music and I was like, I know what that means. Hey,
you're like, wrap it up.
Hey, so the brevity, like, and I know now it's 30 seconds. That when that music, and sometimes, like, if he's being cool, he may say, "By the way, hello, Shane.
Good morning.
Did you get a haircut?"
I did.
Yeah,
yes.
you look terrible. I didn't get a haircut.
Neither did I. I need one.
Cute.
No,
I noticed your hair does not look that
bro.
bad.
Hang on. If I can do that and it moves, it's long.
Well, it may be longer than you'd like, but it doesn't look bad.
Zero fade.
It doesn't look bad at all.
So, like,
then again, I'm wearing a hat. So.
I'm like, where in the world are we going to start? And I felt like I had to make some concessions. I was like, we could better put baseball on the back burner. I'm like, shoot, no, it's trade deadline. We could wax poetic
Good news
about.
Is there haven't been a lot of huge
nothing
deals
yet
done.
You got conference realignment. You got my man
Bud
Crawford
with the realignment too.
Listen, I just want to be. This is one of those. Sometimes I can take not being right. Like if I learn something along the way, like I'm not gonna, or I told you so. But you have no idea how bad I want Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten, because I said that from the jump.
Those are a couple of 2 winners.
And I hear all the smart guys, which. I say that tongue in cheek.
I think you like the board too.
What do they bring to the table? This, that, and the other. Splitting of the pie. And I keep telling people that's not playing the long game. That's not what this is going to be about. On the short term, sure, I could see where you guys say that, but they're not to have the power conference going forward for decades will be worth getting 28 mil a piece versus 32 mil a piece. It just will in the long term. And there's still the golden the golden goose out there, which is Notre Dame.
And they're easier to grab.
So you want to put yourself in
schools.
position where it's advantageous to you to do that. So I just
Because you run into the issue of in those with the ACC programs that Florida and South Carolina, I was talking about this with Robbie yesterday, that they have first right of refusal.
Yeah.
If they want to try to make a move to whether it's the SEC or the Big Ten, probably more the Big Ten than it is the SEC. But those are two other schools that are getting tossed around. And if you could, not to say that they'll add the two big ones from the ACC, but if you can at least grab the two from the Pac-12 first.
Yeah. And I just want the pod complete going in. Like I would like 4 West Coast teams to start.
It would help with the UCLA USC edition.
Yeah, right. Like that's the end game for me. And it's funny just sometimes listening to like, because I feel like I've been everywhere now. By the way, hey Shane, we got to grab Bruce Feldman. Now, he actually told me he missed me, so he's lost so much. He's like the thin guy, and he's like,
everybody's losing weight that you're running into.
Dude, Sam McEwen looked like $1 million. I didn't know if it was the haircut and he doesn't take compliments very well. So when I saw him kind of traipsing across the field at Lucas, I was like, Sam, you look fantastic. He's like, oh, well, It's like, no, bro, like stand up and take a bow, man. You look legit. So
good morning.
I tried not to talk to so many of the local guys, but it's hard for me to not, I enjoy Mitch Sherman. So I talked to Mitch. I saw him a fan. It was cool to see Mitch be a dad. There may have been 3 generations. I assume that was Mitch's dad, Mitch, and his son.
That's cool.
So I was
That's really cool.
Believe me, it was a mass exodus for me. They're like, hey, player recruits that want to stick around for a tour of. Nope. Seeing the new facilities, I'm outro because the barbecue went until like 3. But they had already lined up for fans. I don't know when the first fans got there for fan day, but
that line
we walked out.
That was longer than the rides at Dollywood when I was in Gatlinburg.
So I looked at. By the way, that view looks spectacular. I looked at Caleb and I was like, "Hey, man," I said, "I'm about to pull a dad here. Head down. We got to bounce, right?" So we walked through the double doors with where Tio and Behringer's, Coach Osborne and Behringer's statue are. And, I mean, 5 seconds in, Damon Benning, and she is so cool. Like she is the mom of a player we used to play against. That's now down in Lincoln, and I'm always cool to her. She's just good people, right?
Well, and then you have to talk.
But what can I not stand in public? Like the first name, last name thing, especially like if we're cool, right? Like. It doesn't, and it doesn't have to be like that. You know what I mean?
Like, am I in trouble? Is my mom here?
But the line, but it was actually cool because, getting in the truck, like he just looked back and he was like, "Man," I said, "Yeah."
This place cares about their football.
Hey,
even
do you
when
know?
the football's not
I
too
was like,
great.
"And this could be yours." Nah, but we're cool. We got the whole.
I'm sure Coach Rule loved that exit by you guys.
I want to know what he said to him yesterday. He had him for like 15 minutes during practice, but we're to the point now.
You in a good mood or what?
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna get him back for the whole Benning Bites thing because
Day after day after day.
Hey, hold on. Let me start here. Another episode of Benning Bites.
Hey.
Apple, Spotify.
So my man didn't even like how we were sitting.
Yeah, you retooled.
Yeah, he changed the benches in the weight room. And do you know what he did though?
Much better.
Do you know what he did though? In typical Coach Rule fashion. So I think Sasha. So it was Sasha and I just moving the weight, the benching benches. So we're like, hey, let's do these in the weight room. And she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, right?
When is she not?
Dude, but she's she's moving, right? So I'm like, shoot, man, I can't I know it's 2023 and it's like, chivalry is supposed to be dead, but like, nah, man, I'm not going to watch her do work. So I'm like, hey, where you want the weight bench? And we want to get started. And so he's just looking at me. He's not saying anything. And he goes, hey, you comfortable? You comfortable? I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, sit down. So I sat down because when he goes crazy, like you can hear the East Coast accent, right? Like it's thick. So I sat down and he's like, is this comfortable to you? Like just talk to me, say something. And I did. And I go, no, it's actually kind of weird. He goes, can we flip these around? I'm like, you had me go through what it felt like to let me know that it was, I just would have moved them.
You know what he is.
But that's what he did. That's what he does.
That's
like he wanted you to feel what it felt like.
That with the players out on the field and say like, hey, go ahead and run this and then let me know if it feels right to you.
Yeah, he was
no doubt to me about that.
But and I'll probably talk about this in Benning Bites more when I have more time. But he's no longer my favorite rule. He's not. And this is before I've spent any time with Julie. But Bryant, his son, by far and away is my.
Well, you can't leave the listeners just waiting for Benning Bites now.
He just did. He just.
I mean, he's
a great kid, and he kind of knew he must have recognized me because he said hello like right away. And there's not very many people there, right? I mean, it's pretty quaint. It's a small little gathering, so I think he sees me kind of. I'm just like looking at the grass, and I felt like I felt like off of Gladiators when he like scoops up the dirt and he smells it and he puts it in his hand. Like I think I must have been doing something like that with a little fleck of grass that got chewed up a little bit. And I was like, man, this grass is fantastic. And I looked up at Caleb. I'm like, man, can you believe this? I'm like, I'm just telling you, like, we didn't have any of this. Like we're jumping through the outfield fence. It is spectacular.
Man, that dirt looks amazing
next to the new facility. But anyway, he came over and we I basically spent 40 minutes. I didn't pay any. I did want to see Coach White and Coach Coop coach because I mean that's why we're there, right? Like we want to see what the defense and that's where he gravitated towards. And so like I stole a couple drills.
Oh man, I mean,
one or two we already do, so I like the fact that we're on the right page at the high school. But we talked for probably just 40 minutes of just random, like I don't know. You can see 1,000% Drew Down that he practices what he preaches with relationships in his family. Like that is totally his son. And you what? Like I'm like, and I'm a sucker, right? Like when I see father sons like that, I'm game over. It just does something to you. I mean, and I wish I could have got to watch my dad work. You know what I mean? Or just things you don't appreciate, which is funny. You know, I can put proof is in the pudding, right? It's the first thing I said about your parents when they left. I was like, I could like Barry because I watched.
Because you like me.
And I watched you guys interact.
Right.
Like he's a proud dad, right? Just engaging with so I'm like, okay, I like the family dynamic.
The family dynamic is good.
I'm vibing.
Which in Gatlinburg, I mean, some would say you travel with your family and it can get a little dicey.
So that was a week, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Counting, we had 2 stops in Louisville on the way there and back. So
I love my family, but
6-7 days,
3-4 days might be about it. Yeah, I'm ready to probably come back
because I think the mindset, and my dad, he said it. It was not everybody has to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Go
do your thing.
Go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So like a group went to the aquarium one day and my brother and I went to Dollywood because we're big roller coaster junkies. Do you like roller coasters?
No. Are you nuts?
No.
I don't even like heights.
Is it okay? Is it the height thing or is it the cleanliness?
Man, it's the height thing. Listen, I almost threw up on the Skyfari at the zoo. Full disclosure. If I wasn't with Zoe, I'd have never got on. But when your 5-year-old is like championing
the ski lift, right?
Listen. Halfway through that thing, I saw where we had to turn around and they said you can't get off at the end. Like I had to come back. So we're going over the little koi, goldfish, whatever water thing. I'm in my head. I'm looking at this little girl and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm close to the ground, man. if I got to jump, man, you're going to be all right. I'm going to land in the water, probably break both my kneecaps, right? Because it's probably about 6 feet deep.
It's better than landing in like the.
But I'm not coming back going over this thing. Oh, man, I was like, yeah, this.
So not a big roller coaster. Okay?
Bro, that was the longest 16-minute Skyfire ride ever. I am not doing that again. I'm just not that.
That thing takes 16 minutes.
Man, it seemed like it took 16 days.
Man, I'm out on that.
For
Most
$7,
I grabbed this guy, and I'm just sitting on the patio.
Hey, so I got that from Barnes and Noble. So I think I flew out at 5. I got that Tuesday at like 5:40. And per DB, just not very smart sometimes in public. So I'm like looking in the sports section for the magazines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got everything.
But this.
And I couldn't find it. So I go to the front counter.
Okay, Robbie.
Hey, real talk. And this girl's like having a Dungeons and Dragons magazine conversation talk with the dude in line. I was like, this isn't going to go so well. Like, I'm totally prejudging, right? But I'm kind of skeptical. And I said, hey, total admission, right? I'm insecure. I'm like, this is probably user error, but I can't find Phil Steele. I said, are you guys out? And she goes, oh, no, we can't be. She goes, come here, I'll show you.
Is it right when you walk in?
It's on the end cap.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Under popular magazines, there's 15 of them. And I walked right by it twice.
That's not as bad as Robbie. Robbie walked into the Barnes & Noble here. There's a table of these right when you walk in.
Yeah.
And he missed them, went to the magazines, couldn't find it, and bought Lindy's. And then when he got to the counter, he's like, I had to get this because you didn't have Phil Steele. And she's like, it's right there.
Yeah.
So we got them both.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And there was the guy next to me. And he's like, yeah, he said, Phil Steele guy. And I go, yeah. And I kept it brief. I go, must have. And he goes, don't worry. I recognize the voice. I'm not saying anything. I was like, wow, am I that big of a bag?
No, you're that big of a celeb.
No. Like where people, because it doesn't seem to bother most. I whine and stuff about being in public, but it doesn't. I'll get by, right? Like I know what I'm doing.
I feel like a lot of it's sarcasm too.
It is. I just don't. Like if I'm by myself, cool. But if I'm with the kids or something, like they've been making fun of me for years, right? It's just like, it's gonna take. Even my mom, who shops slower than molasses, like has no room to talk, is like, I'm not going to Costco with you. I'm stopping every 4 minutes. I'm like, we need your inhaler anyway. Like, are you really making fun of me? Oh yeah, she has a field day. She'll roll her eyes. Here we go. I can hear it in the corner of my.
I just want to be a fly on the wall some days.
She's wild. She is something else. She's asking me 55 questions about the visit, because deep down, I think everybody's like championing Nebraska, but they're just not trying to shove it down his throat. Because she goes, any good news? I said, call him. He'll appreciate it. Ask him. Sure. Yeah, I can't wait to see how that goes.
And Caleb keeps to himself.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to get stuff out of him.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to get information out of this Nebraska team. We'll go through what we heard from them yesterday following fall camp. We'll talk about DB's takeaways from practice as well, outside of finding a more impressive rule in the family.
Yeah.
And we
Team
have
Bryant.
a packed show as well with Brandon Vogel and Tony Boone. More on that coming your way next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
Prove to the team and to the coaches that I'm there whenever they need me, doing whatever they need.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a position where you kind of have to have a little experience on you. You kind of need to get thrown in the fire a little bit. I mean, that happened to me when I was a freshman. I got thrown into Wisconsin. You know, I'm playing against 22-year-olds that are 315 pounds. Me personally, I can't stand the bed. We got a little twin-size bed. My feet are...
Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I think they allowed us just to play football. I mean, it's kind of see ball, get ball. And I think Coach White's defense is pretty giving and kind of lets us as the players. I mean, obviously we have certain calls and stuff like that, but other than that, it's kind of just we want you to just go make a play. Just go make a play. And that's all we want.
Outside of Coach Rule, Ty Robinson was the best speaker at the podium yesterday. And you could tell that Coach really rubs off on him just by the way he just kind of just went through how practice operates in his mind and what he expects out of his player, out of his position group and things like that. Ty Robinson is the type of guy that's like, you're a leader. I could see you with a C on the chest.
Well, I wish I was. You talked about being a fly on the wall. I wish I was a fly on the wall. I remember this is probably February, and it was right after they'd gone through a winter conditioning stint. Maybe it was January. I just know it was cold walking to go see Trev, and I saw Coach Rule and Ty Robinson sitting on the stairs out front at Memorial Stadium where the statue is.
I was wondering what stairs they were sitting on because I'm like, those
I just
small guys.
and I just was like, well, that's interesting. Like, I mean, because you kind of sit and watch. Like, if we're just sitting there chopping it up outside, and it takes, and they were still out there when I left, and so it had to be at least 20 minutes, and that was early. I just, so, and I could see, like, if there's that kind of investment, and then I hear T-Rob talk, like, he sounds a lot like his coach. The see ball, get ball. I could probably watch Coach White teach a lot, playing angles, not cheating the drills, his technique, how important your eyes and your hands are. Like and he was really good on Sunday, right? Like, he's a good one.
He's easy to like.
Yeah, and I was listening to you guys yesterday for a little while. I think because it was right after I hung up because we were driving down almost there, and you're talking about coaches you'd like to spend time around. And I was happy that both you guys rallied around Coach Knighton. He's a stud.
Yeah, Sam, that was his first choice.
He's a stud.
And then Ravi followed it up with him. But I would have.
You said Super Coop, right? Yeah. Caleb was vibing with you. He's like, we see we get along. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Well, he's my favorite Benning.
And I go, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, that you wouldn't be the first person to say that. So, and I said, and I told him, I looked dead at him. I go, that's fun. I mean, go ahead, knock yourself out if all you ever want to talk about is football. And Caleb goes, exactly. Because, I mean, that's what you're getting with Coop, right? You're getting football.
I just want to bounce into his recruiting brain and be like, how are your things wired up there?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time these last couple of days. Just, I told you, right? Tyson Terry's dad is my guy, right? And so we were just talking. We talked again last night. And Knighton's impact and his personality and how he teaches, and you put that with Coach White, they should be able to get it done on the recruiting trail.
Oh man,
I mean, I think
you firmly believe that.
I do. When it comes to getting bigs, and I think those two guys' personalities combined will really, really get it done. The unofficial on Sunday was so much different than anything that we had been a part of. It was actually fun. Games, scavenger hunt. And T. Knighton was kind of the ringleader. He had the families, like, he's great. He was the first one to comment on the Benning by the rule. Impersonation, and he laughed, and I'm like, man, but that's his personality. But when it's time to work, oh man, he's a thing. He's a sight to watch.
Look, I could be swayed.
No, I'm not. Listen, I got no problems with Coop.
But I'm saying, like, I could be swayed with any coach on this list. I would spend time with all of them.
Yeah,
I really would. Put me with Dvorak. A lot of people would probably say he's one of the last on the list because he doesn't get talked about enough. I'd spend some time with him too.
He's a good dude. Young, can teach. I'll give you a dark horse though, because he comes across as kind of mean spirited.
Donnie Ray.
No, but he is cool. I like him. I'm biased though because of the family, but good guess, but not it. I mean, mean spirited. By the way, Rayola was the only one when the coaches were doing introductions on Sunday. Didn't use a microphone. They're handing it to one another. He passed on the microphone, just used his regular voice.
I'm telling you, he does not do things the way that I thought would be molded because of Coach Rule. Mean-spirited.
He's
backs coach.
Yeah, EJ Barthel. Oh yeah, my man oozes intensity. And you know what? I think my favorite thing about Coach is I think I kind of vibe with him, right? Because was never really the best, but pretty good.
For sure.
Likes development. He's very direct in kind of how he talks. Like I like EJ a ton. A ton. Yeah, yes, he is. And he's a monster out there. I mean, he would be somebody that would, I mean, he probably eats with intensity. Like, aggressive chewer, aggressive steak cutter, like
a bulldog.
But he would be interesting too. But he'd be it on the offense for me, I think. That'd be about it.
You wouldn't want to spend time with G Money?
So he's a really, really good conversationalist. He was probably the second coach on Sunday that I talked to, and he came up from behind, so I didn't see him because I was sitting down getting my butt whipped at Uno. But which I forgot how to. I mean, I'm not even gonna get into it. I'm competitive, man. Easy. I don't know about that. We got to talk off air.
Uno's difficult.
I was like, what is going on?
Well, it's just about like the cards that get dealt to you. Like, do you have draw fours in there?
So CJ Cavazos, right? He was sitting there.
Do I know CJ?
Yeah, Mr. Energy. So I had a couple cards in my hand and I didn't know what they meant. So I couldn't ask anybody at the table because they're playing. And he goes, "Hey man, come here. I'll tell you." So I'm holding the cards and I'm asking him, and I got ready to sit down, and he goes, "You're not very. Aren't you supposed to be smart?"
Don't you play cards?
I was like, "Wow, that's
Are
what we're."
2 aces good?
I didn't know what some of the symbols meant. Like there were 2 opposite arrows. There was reverse. A 0 with a blocker. There was
that's a skip card.
I didn't know if like +4 meant like, okay, can I pick? But if I get the color, can I put one down? Like there's just the little things, man. Or if it's the same number, does it have to be that card, or can I pick the card? Yeah, it's not like I haven't played Uno in 25 years, minimum. I think we made it a drinking game. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, the skip card was, finish your beer.
It wouldn't have been beer. How about a beer? So I don't know.
We only talk about Zipline.
Yeah, I know it. I'm Team Zipline. How about a beer? You want to go to Ramon?
Yeah, let's do Ramon. Shane, pot up Ramon, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved at any point. Ramon, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Razor Ramon.
We're good. Both off vacation, so we're feeling fresh and ready to go.
Although I've been living at our high school, so I don't know if you call that a vacation, Ramon.
Yeah, I know. You're always working.
Bro, they changed the locks on the door, so I have to use my scan card now. You should see what that looks like, trying to get me to figure that thing out. Beep.
I'm saying.
Beep. Does it have 2 arrows on it?
Has your picture and everything on it? Do you
yeah.
have your
Yeah, I do.
Are you smiling?
No.
Not shocked.
Nope, I'm not. What's up, Ramon?
Man, so I was just talking to my neighbor, and she was asking me why so many Spence fans thought Crawford had no chance.
Right.
And I actually had to think about it on a deeper level.
Of course.
Because I went to college in Texas, and what I found was that people were very obsessed with where people were from. Mm-hmm. And specifically, if you were from Texas, you were better than everybody else was the mentality.
I got to ask my mom.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
She from there?
She's from Houston.
Yeah. So it was like they're having a hard time processing that someone from Nebraska can actually their best guy.
We'll talk about that in our big segment, but your boy was pretty happy about that outcome, cheering my brains out.
I've hardly had any sleep since.
Yeah, I went back and watched it.
The first one to say that either.
I watched it last night in its entirety with no volume. Spectacular.
That's how I had to watch it.
Spectacular.
I'll tell you why I had to watch it that way in that segment too. Thanks, Ramon, for the call.
All right.
More CNC after the break.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
Man, I love this game, so it's no telling. I get catches, watch film at home. You know, it's a never-ending job. I can't put a number on it, but I'm working.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Man, I love this game, so it's no telling. I get catches, watch film at home. You know, it's a never-ending job. I can't put a number on it, but I'm working.
You know, Billy Kemp, I couldn't put my finger on it until yesterday. He didn't strike me as a football player. And you know why? It's because all I see is Hector Zeroni when I look at him.
I don't even know who that is.
So Hector Zeroni is that little dude in holes that pairs himself up with the main character. Who is that? Shia LaBeouf?
I've never seen it.
Is that who's in that?
I have never seen it.
I'll pull up a picture for you. Hector Zeroni. This is Hector Zeroni.
Oh, I know that little guy.
The little guy.
How old is he though?
Hector Zeroni, like the real guy.
Yeah.
Isn't it Khalil Thomas or something?
I don't know, but how old is he?
Today, 34.
Oh, so he's like a grown-up. He doesn't look like a grown-up.
Not in there, because
No.
that's when he was super young. I
No.
think Holes came out in like 05.
I've never heard of that show, though, by the way.
If he turns out to look like this someday, which I could see.
That does kind of look like it.
That's Billy Kemp.
That does kind of look like it.
What did he say in his interview? That he only dropped 3 balls in his entire career? Like, he was like 2 against this team, 1 last year.
Yeah. And when it's that few, you can remember him, obviously.
So he's not lying. He's not kidding when he says that. But that was Billy Kemp coming out of the break. Of course, we talk a lot about, well, at least to open the show, we said we would get into a lot what the players said, what coach said. But before we do any of that, because I don't want to miss this, you had said you were about to tell a story about Coach McGuire, and then we got on the Uno train.
Oh, he just was, I know, tangents, right? That's what our guys that are in our comment section said.
Oh, my God.
Generally speaking, we were just talking about the evolution and the growth of Xavier Betts. And, he just was very appreciative, and as was I. We just had a moment, a lot has, because he wanted some insight, right? And he sought some know-how, and so I think originally the first time I went down there was just to share kind of what I would suggest, what maybe hasn't worked for me, what has worked before, like just so everybody knew exactly what they were dealing with, just because I think it's just deeper than, oh man, why don't you just want to go out here and do something, right? Like you couldn't come at it like that. Mm-hmm. Hey, don't you see what's before you? Like, just go get it. Like, obviously that hasn't worked. It's not what it's about. Right. So, G, as Brant Rule would say, it's got it under control. They have a fantastic relationship. So I mean, they've looked great. He looks great.
Yeah, ZB. I think he's going to be the difference maker in that.
He was early too on Sunday because the guys were just reporting, and we're not really sticking around. We just see him come and go, and he looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Before he even got there, tons of people were saying, I like this room. I like this wide receiving room. I like what Coach McGuire is doing. And we were kind of skeptical. Like, we're like, not like, it doesn't really like give me butterflies.
Right.
But
I'm the same way.
After they added Xavier Betts, that's when it went over the hump for me. That's when I could finally say, okay, like I like where the room is at now. I couldn't say that before, but I think he's the difference maker that the room needed. So hearing what you just said there, being first there,
was early.
The compliment.
He was early.
Okay,
yeah.
So being early, or the compliments that he's getting from Coach McGuire and Coach Rule, and really everybody on that offense. I mean, it just seems like people are showing a lot of praise toward him. It strikes me to believe that he'll be the one. He won't. I'm not saying he's Trey Palmer. Like, I don't want to go that far, but he has the best chance at being Trey Palmer.
And I think, I always say, like I said, deep down, people want to be led. I think that's a point that you could glean from kind of what this staff is, whether it's the swift discipline of Coach Wager, whether it's, Fleeks going home, whether it's Miles Farmer looking for something to do.
That's somebody that I'm not confident in wanting to be led anymore.
Yeah. So I that was a concern for me from
in the spring.
Remember?
Because
it was actually early, and might have been earlier than actually when spring ball starts. This was during winter conditioning.
Yes, because I had asked, before spring ball began, I said, who's going to emerge in spring for you? Who's the guy that you're worried about?
And I just think, and I just know personalities, right? And I felt like, okay, there was a handful of guys where I felt like this is going to take some. Shoot, Marcus Washington was on that list. Remember, I go, I'll be curious to see how he responds. Obviously, Tommy Hill was an easy one for me to pick, but I was seriously concerned about Miles Farmer and it has just not gone the way that I think either one of them wanted it to do. And you could hear. And Shane, I don't know what number that is. It's Coach Rule speaking on Farmer. If you have
hear the disappointment in his voice.
Yeah, that's the thing. Shane, did you find it?
I'm looking forward here.
Yeah, well, I didn't give you much warning, and you have 71 clips cut up. So
that is true.
No, I'm actually proud. I'm actually proud of him.
On Miles Farmer, Rule 9. Shane.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of day by day, like I said, I love Miles. He's a competitive kid. It's so hard when you have a new coach, right? And they have different standards than you're used to. So I get that, right? We've been patient with a lot of guys, We'll see what happens with Miles, right? We'll see what happens. And, we'll see, like I said, the ball's in his court. I mean, would love him to be here, but, whatever he wants to do, I respect him as a man. So whatever he decides, I understand.
The back end of that. Take the last 50% of that response, and Coach Rule knows deep down that Miles Farmer's not going to be a member of this team.
So when you were gone, I think I was talking to Ravi and Sauter, and our listeners may remember this. They were asking about his personality and kind of one of the things that I gleaned from the sit down and kind of what makes him unique. And I said, this is weird. So maybe you can help me here. He doesn't take himself that serious where he's like going to be up in arms. Like he still wants to learn. He's going to he's a lifelong learner, but quietly he's supremely confident in his protocol. So he's always willing to walk away. There's just something about those people that, like, when they're willing to walk away, push themselves away from the table, in this weird way, it leaves you wanting more. Like, no, don't leave. No. Hey. Okay. I was just kidding. Sit down. Sit back down. Do you know what I mean? He's the type of guy that's willing to push himself away from the table. But do you know the reason why you want more? Because you know that he cares about you. He's just willing. And I would imagine he's made a living being able to do this. He's willing to walk away from the deal. And you can hear how disappointing is it? Like if he were talking about me and he says, well, it's up to DB. It's up to him. Like he kind of knows where we're at. That's on him. It immediately puts the onus on you that he's probably told you what you needed to do in order to make this right. It's up to you if you want to do it. He, in this weird way, it seems like he's always operating from a position of power, like being on the offensive. He's never reactionary. So when you're like that, because it's a miserable place to be. If you had to live your life always reacting to things, as opposed to trying to occasionally get out in front or be ahead of the game, it's just a tough place to be. You're always in the defensive posture. It's just no fun, right? Not over time anyway. And hearing that, you just know, like, it's not on Coach Rule. That's
it
on
reminds me when my parents sent me to my room growing up. If we want to use the table example, you're at the dinner table, you have a bad attitude, go to your room, Andrew. So I go to my room. Now it's up to me to reflect.
Yeah.
And now I'm one with me. That's it.
Yeah.
But now I'm pacing the room, right? Now I pick up an I Spy book. Okay. Now I'm like just touching a knick-knack on the dresser. Like you're just kind of doing things. You're putzing, trying to figure out what's next. And you can either come back to the table with the respect that the one who sent you to where you are, like my parents, I could come back with respect for my parents, or I could come back with the same bad attitude and it could turn into me not eating. Like that's kind of what this situation reminds me of.
It's just, they just are. The discipline and the way he's put it to you like this. He's not going to compromise culture for the sake of a few guys. He's just not going to get in the 10%.
Which is why we talked about the door. Like initially, when you hear like, oh, there's the door, it's easy to say. But is it really easy to live up to?
Especially when it like hurts him. He's just not transactional. He's relational.
Why he didn't work in Carolina?
It hurts him. Remember, I gave this is probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and I go, he'll say, listen, I've done this before. Like I know what this takes, and I care about you. Why would you want to fight me? Like, why would you make a concerted effort to swim upstream when I want the best for you? Like I can hear him saying that, right? So it makes you think like, man, look, if you send a guy home to go get in shape because he wasn't in, just imagine the E plus R equals O. You know what the desired outcome is. You better respond
and I'd
accordingly.
Be incredibly embarrassed if I was the one sent home.
That's a cold shot, isn't it?
Brandon Vogel up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's the one distinct. Yeah, that's the one.
Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Yeah, that's the one distinguishing really good characteristic. I mean, they're all, like I said, they're all, they're getting a lot of reps and they're probably not used to it. So there's a lot of guys kind of trying to catch their breath. They're in pretty good shape. They're pretty knowledgeable. The challenge to them, all young players want to play. The number one thing that keeps young players from playing is their knowledge of the playbook. It slows them down, right? So I begged them at the end of practice, like, this is not my phone, but I was like, this will not help you play. Like, every minute you spend on this phone or playing the game does not help you play. Like, study your playbook. So that's the hardest thing. Like, very few guys will actually do it. Just is what it is, right? Like, but the ones who do, there'll be a couple of freshmen that'll really buy into it and they'll study it and they'll be on a mission to play and they'll help us because the young players, we're going to win with the older players, but the young players can help us.
Very few will actually do it. So who's a freshman on your brain right now, DB, that will do it? And I'll ask Vogel this too. There's 3 for you. Shane, the mic thing. Bang the board again. Bang the board.
There's 3.
Is he back?
I don't know. What was that? Bang the board.
Oh, I got him. I got him now.
Me?
Sometimes your headset, this was happening to Robbie yesterday, and Shane was like banging the board over there to try to get it to work.
Uh-huh.
And now you're here. Just like Vogel. Brandon Vogel's here with us as well. Okay, so there's 3 for you. Vogel, think about this while DB rattles these off.
Well, let B. Vogues go first. He's a little smarter, I think.
The tables have turned. Vogel, okay, so
at least I think
the quote we came back with.
I'm assuming I know he's smart.
The quote we came back with was Rule talking about the young players and studying the playbook because that's what will lead you to play. And he said very few freshmen will do it. So who's a freshman on your mind that will actually do it?
First one that comes to mind, and I guess maybe it's a little bit of cheating because he's been here since January, is Princewell and Monmulan. You can just tell from, I think, how he carries himself, and it goes way beyond, I think, just the.
Oh, he froze.
Oh,
it's okay.
A cliffhanger.
He froze on us. Oh, B. Vogues. That's the Wi-Fi.
Gee, dang it.
Gee, dang it. I heard G-Wagon and G-Baby. No, G, dang it.
Hey, Shane, reach out to Vogel, see if he can reconnect for us.
I'm with him.
Mielen was actually somebody on my Super Six.
Yeah.
Way back when. And the other guy on there who I think will be the one, and maybe it's a little bit of cheating too, because I heard Ty mention his name yesterday, Cam Lenhart.
Correct. That's another.
He's somebody that's just all in focused.
Who's the third?
Your boy. My boy.
The easiest one of the bunch.
TA.
Yep.
Tristan Albano.
Correct.
But I don't know how much does a playbook or of a playbook does a kicker have to study?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, he's talking about guys that are emotionally ready to play early.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the playbook; it's the emotional capacity that you need to be an early contributor.
All 3 guys on
I think
is
the general consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And Tristan Alva, and we said this before. First of all, Tristan's a Sunday talent.
No question.
Sunday talent.
The field goal he kicked yesterday, the one that Adam shared that I had to retweet because I'm like, Adam goes, oh, yeah, he just casually kicked it from 50 yards. I watched that ball go through, and now my view is skewed because I'm watching on Twitter. That would have been good 10, 15 yards further.
He's ridiculous. And he's not even – I mean, he's kind of nursing, his body. So they probably really aren't overjoyed that he's doing that right now. But he's just so competitive, and it's his mind. It's not a lot of guys are physically gifted that are good enough to play on Sundays. I won't say a lot, but when you put their mind with it, that's kind of the deal breaker. He likes pressure. Alvano's a Sunday talent.
Mm-hmm. And as a kicker, you have to really embrace that pressure.
Yeah. I just messing with him all day yesterday. All I kept saying is, hey, you still dialed? He said, I'm always dialed, coach. Like, he's just, we're dialed.
How quickly do you think he takes over the duties?
Could be day one.
Speaking of, we got Brandon back.
All right, we got
There he is.
B-Vokes.
Okay,
All right.
B-Vokes, bring him back in.
All right.
There he is.
So you froze right after you were getting ready to get into the telltale signs of Princewell.
Yeah, I hope you guys liked my answer because the universe did not, apparently. Yeah, what I was starting to say was, obviously, he made a splashy debut, I think, for most people in the spring game. But I think just looking at the way he carries himself, and the way that he's come in and been ready, really tells you the story. And it was super interesting, that Rule quote, kind of the acknowledgement of the circumstances of like, look, not a lot of guys are going to do this. And I think a lot of coaches deal with that. Well, I think all coaches deal with that of like, these habits are kind of hardwired for people of this age at this point, and they're hard to break. But all you can do is say, hey, if you want to be out there right away, you say what he said. This doesn't help you.
Pretty interesting.
Give me two more.
Oh, let's see. Does a kicker count?
He absolutely does.
And I said him too when we were trying to get you back.
Well, are you going to go 3 for 3? He may go 3 for 3.
So TA is who you would say second on that list.
Yep. And I probably will stick to the D line for the other one and go with Linhart.
Yeah. That's why we let Brandon go first.
Hold on.
That's why
just pluck those out of my brain.
That's why.
While you were gone, that's who I had ended up saying. Those three.
I think some would get there with two of the three, or they may try to slide in if he does such. I think those are the three surefires. The others need some things to go right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Positionally, especially. Like it just opportunity.
You got an off the radar guy you're interested in, Brandon? Because so let me preface this by saying, right, if you split the practices in two, which he's done, right? So you have most of the older guys going for the first couple of hours, and then the second wave of younger guys go the second couple of hours. Because he said the first 4 or 5 days he wants the coaches to get a look at everybody. So keep that in mind. Like when you're evaluating, everybody's going to get seen. So you don't have to worry about, this guy may only get such and such a reps, because the way that they split the numbers, I think they want you to be able to get some reps. Is there a couple of guys that you think have a chance to make a move under that particular practice structure?
I think it benefits the freshmen for sure, but some of those guys who are in that group with them, it offers an opportunity for them as well. I mean, he wouldn't be very far off the radar for me. He'd probably be number 4 of the 3 guys that we just talked about, but just haven't seen as much from him. But Eric Fields, I think, is a fairly good pick as a freshman. Like I said, for the guys that weren't here in the spring necessarily, or somebody like Tristan who we're aware of from just high school football in the state, it's a little bit harder for me to know some of the intangible pieces of it. How willing are you to put down the phone? But super talented guy, and it was pretty clear early on that the coaching staff was really high on him, which is still a good story. Before Nebraska jumped in, he was headed to Arkansas State. It's not like they flipped him from another Power 5 school. So I'm really intrigued to see him. He's the first one that comes to mind.
Vogel, we just went through a little bit of the housekeeping details with Miles Farmer, and it had me thinking during the break that the 10-80-10 principle that Rule said he was going to adopt from Urban Meyer, he's actually following through with what he says. And, it's not just coach speak with him, but the follow through is absolutely real. Are you starting to notice that 10-80-10 principle kind of being implemented now that you are seeing, him just kind of tell 4 guys, not really 4, just 2 guys, going into the first day of fall camp, like, no, you need to figure some things out before you come back, that he's not focusing on the bottom 10, but he really does have a focus on the top 10 and then the top 10 of the 80 and so forth down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly there in the actions. I think that's a good point. So you have Miles Farmer, a guy that I remember when Damon and I, when he signed, were both like pretty high on, just based on his ability coming out of high school.
Hey, and Brandon, full disclosure, don't let people tell you that he's not good. He's slow. Listen, that one hurts. So, and they were willing to do it. Don't operate under like some of these knuckleheads out here that'll tell you this guy isn't very good. Like, he made a ton of strides physically.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, and they were willing to do it, I think, is the key phrase. Because Fleeks, a guy they had a relationship with from way back, he was there. It was, shorter term, but Anthony Grant in spring football missed one of those early practices. And Rule said something really similar to what he said about Farmer. It's like, it's not a big deal. It's not like there was a major violation of team rules. It just wasn't what we needed. So we gave him a break, and then balls in their court, as Rule said. And Anthony Grant was obviously not out for very long, but came back, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with Farmer.
Let me ask you something, B. Vogues. Of the three kind of, so he told a guy to stay home that he knows. Some may think it's easier or harder, right? Do you want to tell a friend bad news or tell a stranger bad news? You had Bob Wager. You have Miles Farmer, who is a guy that has a lot of playing experience. Which one do you think resonates the most with how the players felt about said individual versus the ramifications of what happened? Who do you think will have the biggest impact on the players? Like, man, these guys are not messing around.
Probably Farmer, just given the players' familiarity with him and the amount of football he's played. I mean, we talked all offseason because it was true. Like, Nebraska returns their entire secondary, their entire starting secondary. And yeah, there's some injuries there, but here's a guy who, prior to noticing he wasn't at Fan Day, like, I think all of us probably would have slotted in, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I do think, like, this defense, there's still plenty of movement to be had in these next 3 to 4 weeks, but just given the familiarity that the current team has with him, I think it has to be him. And those guys can see, like, they know how they've had to modify their behaviors individually. And they know what it was prior. So I think having both pieces of that probably lead me towards the returning upperclassmen as kind of the most poignant example for anybody who maybe is not in that top 10%, but's trying to get there. Like, okay, here's how it can go the other way for somebody that we probably know pretty well.
Josh Fleeks, I think, would be the one for me.
So would you guys rather tell somebody bad news or a stranger bad? Like,
I'd rather tell a stranger bad news over somebody I know, because I would worry more about hurting their feelings.
But the level of comfortability wouldn't trump that.
But I think the impact that it has on everyone else, if you tell the person hey, go home. You're overweight, go home. That, to me, would, like, as a player on this team, it would resonate more.
I think it's interesting, B. Vogues. It's like, and I hate this. It's like when something happens and a guy or gal leaves, they weren't very good or they don't do this. So, now it's Wager wasn't a good coach. He didn't have a good relationship with his players. It's Miles Farmer was slow. He was never this. It was Fleeks was, an addition, a throw in. It was kind of a buddy going to follow a buddy. Like, the way that we minimize things when they're not our guy, I think it not only stymies that person's growth, but it also diminishes the impact of the decisions that the decision makers are trying to make by even going through with the punishments, right? Like, if it's not that big of a deal, then why bother doing it?
Yeah, I hate it too. It's a defense mechanism, and I get it, because you spend all this time like trying to consider, for those people who are really, really into it, really passionate about it, trying to consider like, okay, well, what's secondary look like? What's running back look like, et cetera, et cetera. But like we see it all the time. JD Spielman produced a lot at Nebraska, and when he chose to depart, it happens with almost everyone. Like maybe Wandale was the one I can think of recently where it was like, oh yeah, that one just really hurts. Like I didn't hear a lot of people out there being like, oh, it's fine.
Like, why would he spend time going to hire Bob Wager if Bob Wager, he didn't see that potentially being a good fit? Right now, maybe things changed on the job. Maybe they didn't with his decision making, but he was of value to him at some point, right?
Yeah, that absolutely was. And you can extend that same thing to recruits. Everybody is here. You get the chance to choose who you think you could win games with. And yeah, players develop at different rates and have different levels of buy-in, sure, but it's tricky. Like it's a hard kind of middle ground, I think, to walk. Of sometimes I worry for myself of moving on a little bit too quickly, of not being like, well, Miles Farmer, he wasn't good. I definitely don't think that, but it's like, well, he's out, so what are you going to do next? And you go, and there's just football in particular, I think, is so much about it's kind of the ultimate team game. And yeah, maybe your next guy up isn't as physically talented, maybe isn't experienced as say a Miles Farmer or somebody akin to that, but he's one of 11 guys on that side, and one of probably 22, 23, 24 that are going to play regularly in a game for you. So I worry about minimizing it from the other direction of just being like, well, this is your reality now.
And I'm not, listen, I get it. I completely get it. And I'm not here trying to say that Miles Farmer is Troy Polamalu, but I'm saying realistically as a coach, this is just a coach's vantage point. You're playing in a 3-3-5, right? And you got 5 DBs, and that fourth or the fifth DB is a guy that can sometimes have to play closer to the line of scrimmage and be able to cover like backs out of the backfield and stuff like that. So you get thin in a hurry, right? It's Omar Brown, Deshaun Singleton, Phelan Sanford. Like if you just do the numbers and you get away from just the quote unquote value or the potential of the player, it gets, from an inexperienced standpoint, it gets hectic in a hurry, right? Does that mean you have to do something different with Isaac? Like there's a lot that happens just from the volume of reps that I think with looking at it too topically, makes it too easy to be dismissive. Like, again, I'm not saying he's winning the Jim Thorpe. I'm just saying from a coaching standpoint, coaches don't want to have to be like that until they have to be like that.
Yeah, they don't. And you hope kind of the test tube version of your team that you start fall camp with, which I guess, Miles Farmer didn't start fall camp with, but in the case of an injury or something, is the team you get to pour out onto the field come opening kickoff. But it never happens that way. So, and good coaches kind of, I think, try to account for that, but also make good decisions when those unfortunate instances happen. And we'll see. Nebraska's had one practice so far. There's plenty to go. There's a reason that returning production and things like that matter, and you can't replace that from somebody like a Miles Farmer if he doesn't return. But so it is. You don't have a choice. You got to figure it out.
Vogues, I want to touch on the dorm life a little bit here, especially when talking the younger players being further along because of the experience that is on this team or in the room. It extends with the upperclassmen rooming with the younger players on the team. I mean, who would have thought that Ty Robinson would be rooming with, I think it's Eric Fields or, whatever the pairings end up being.
He's got Fields.
As Nebraska continues to build this culture, how similar is this method to what fraternities use in regards to having bigs and littles, and what do you think is the ultimate goal behind these roommate pairings?
Well, we were talking earlier about consistency with the 10-80-10 principle and how we've seen that. This is another instance of them just doing exactly what Matt Rule said he was going to do. I mean, he said really early on, like, I want our guys to be around each other. And so this, takes an additional step of like, you're not going to choose your roommate. We're going to pair you up based on, who we think can help whom. And we'll see. I mean, I sat there and watched the press conference yesterday, and I knew they were doing this, but I was like, it's such a simple idea, but it seems already like an idea that, and it'll be hard to tell, but it seems already like an idea that's going to have an impact of like, just get those guys together. They're going to go through this for 2 weeks. It's like summer camp within fall camp a little bit. And, could think back to freshman dorm days. They were weird, strange times, but, I think most of the people I know to this day still have people that they stay in touch with from their freshman floor. This isn't quite that, but it's just, it's what they said. It's like, let's get these people together. And, and the other piece of it was, get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is pretty well-worn coaching cliche. But the other part Rule said there that I think is everything in a nutshell. Like the past maybe 15 years of Nebraska football, when he was talking about you're given a lot, but you're not given wins. For me, that's been the struggle for however long you want to go back, 15, 20 years for Nebraska. And it's hard. And every program, I think, that's in Nebraska's spot in the national hierarchy, the historical hierarchy, has to deal with that to a degree. You go to Auburn right now. You're going to be given a lot. It's going to feel like big time football. It doesn't mean the big time wins just get dropped at your doorstep.
It was so interesting you say that. I know I got a couple minutes, but so Coach Rule and Trev were talking, and they were talking about the grass fields and how they have these mats now that line the fences out because they're 2 football fields, and the mats just provide for protection. And Coach Rule said, "Hey, thank you. This looks fantastic. Like, how can you not be appreciative of this?" And Trev said, "Well, it was your idea. Like, I mean, give yourself some credit." And deadpan, straight face, Coach Rule looked at Trev and he said, "It's not my money. People typically don't ask for things that are free. Like, I appreciate it." I just was like, I almost went home on that one, right? Like, just to the immediate
appreciation.
And you're talking about a guy that makes $8 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Who's got a little in the bank, right? It's like, and it just seems so free flowing. Like he didn't have to bat an eye at it,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of straightforwardness, I guess would be the word I would use, in the extreme. And, talk about kind of you have to earn the wins. I've talked about how in the past couple of months, how like Rule is maybe the first coach where in the last at least 3 where it doesn't feel like the job feels too big for him. And I think it's because he just keeps it straightforward. Like, it's just like, yeah, I asked for mats. You bought them, so thank you.
T-Bogues, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for your time this morning. We will talk again next week.
Thanks, Big.
You guys. Thanks.
That is Brandon Vogel at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter.
I really like that guy.
I brought up the dorm life. There's something I want to bring up next in our short seg because I think there's a greater goal at play here. We'll do that next.
I'm all ears.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
You know, just come out and compete. You know, we got a long camp ahead of us, and he just wants us to stay healthy, you know, do our job of, you know, recovering and hydrating, getting to know our playbook and stuff like that, and, you know, just come out ready to compete.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream on ESPN Radio here in Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, the Hurrdat Sports YouTube pages, and we're live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, DB, I should say. He doesn't like his first and last name, especially being told by the public. Oh, the box. Yeah, the box is giving trouble again. So Shane's going to bang on the board one last time.
That doesn't really help, but
oh, the banging doesn't help? I thought it was like a washing machine. You kick it and it starts working.
I don't know.
Is that not how the
it's
equipment
on.
works here?
Like we're in the dorm.
There he is.
The dorm.
I didn't even do anything.
You got me now?
No, it's
No,
okay. I can hear you because you talk loud. And I do not, so it's a problem.
I talk really loud.
Oh, there you are. You're
There's a lot of truth to that.
You're all the way cranked. Look where I have you on my thing.
Whoa. Yeah, and then the music's gonna play, and you're gonna throw the headset off.
It's all good.
Hey, so here's something in the dorm life that I wanted to bring up, where I think there's like a greater goal at play. There's two things. There's two things that I think that will make this team successful on the field this fall. First, it's when faced with a difficult task. How will you respond? Who will you lean on? That's that brotherhood side of it. And then it's the embracing the discomfort side of, hey, I'm not in my own bed. I feel like I'm at summer camp. And whenever you go to summer camp, you can't wait to go home, right? That's kind of what it is. Even if you're doing a lot of fun activities, it's like, I still can't wait to go home to my people, to my bed, to my things. You know, will a move like this solve your close game struggles?
Probably not.
Probably not, but I think maybe. And here's why. So maybe there's something from a mental capacity that's just kind of works itself out in a way. So when you know how to do something, right, it's easier to be successful and confident the next time you do it or when you're faced with it. So when I at home, the garage door broke, and I told you I had to go to the store, get those hinges, had to do it myself. Probably took me an hour to do. If you asked me to do that for your garage door now, I could do it in 15 minutes. And it's just because I've experienced something throughout this time. I experienced how to deal with, okay, going to the store, finding what I need. You know, I don't need to watch YouTube anymore. I know what tools I need to use and things like that. Kind of the same thing here. If I have that brotherhood to lean on, if I already know what that discomfort feels like, that could be the greater goal into, okay, now if we're in a game and we're facing Minnesota week 1 and we're down 28-24 with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and it's 3rd and 15, maybe I know how to persevere past this point. Or maybe we're up 28-24. They have 3rd and 15 and my defense knows how to persevere past this point, and so that you can finally get over the hump. Once this team solves the things that have been haunting them for years, you'll see them more confident when presented with certain issues or struggles on the field. And that could in turn possibly lead to overcoming more than the close losses. Could be a stretch. Right?
I mean, maybe. I think for me, like, this is right in my wheelhouse, just because, you know, I'm always talking about West Side's cultural roadmap.
And you're an outcome guy.
Yep. And what we believe in terms of brotherhood. And I think where I think it shows up, if you have a lot of people think they have chemistry, and then like adversity hits, or a guy doesn't start, or somebody gets hurt, and we don't know you don't get enough balls, you don't get enough touches. That's kind of where I think the time spent and caring about one another comes in, because it's hard to replicate. And I'm not saying your analogies can't creep into tough game situations, but the rigor that you're put through staying in a dorm isn't the same, in my opinion, like from an analogy standpoint, as like 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter. It manifests itself more like, okay, third and 4 in the fourth quarter. It's, hey man, do I care enough about my fellow teammate to be able to encourage him? Hey, let's go. You know, let's go, T-Rob. Hey, you know, Josh, let's make a play. Hey, Gifford, come on, man. Like, blood, sweat, and tears. This is why we do what we do. It's more maybe something like that in terms of emotional connection than it is about execution. Because still, I think at the end of the day, for this team, when you talk about the close losses and things like that, it's about mental fatigue in crunch time, and can you execute and calm your nerves, right? Situationally, have you been through it enough? I don't know if you get that exact feeling or sentiment from dorming together and no phones and things like that. But he is consistent, right? Because even on Sunday when we were and it was early, I think we started at 10, right? Or yeah, we started at 10 and didn't get out of there until like almost 3, right? And so he made it uncomfortable for me. I didn't really have for the first time in a long time, it didn't bother me, right? Because I'm learning to do without my phone quite a bit. But he said early on, he goes, hey, the players are going to do this, scavenger hunt, whatever they were doing for the day. You adults, we're going to spend some time doing some fun things, get to know one another, stay off our phones a little bit, not be so tied to this. And he kind of like holds his phone up and he goes, let's just bond and spend some time with one another. He's talking to adults, right? So it's not like the message is, hey, when you guys go home from today, learn to be without your phones and lean on one another. It was more about getting to know and understand where people are from and how they got here, right? Not necessarily. So maybe next time you're talking about recruiting or parents or something else, you'll have a different perspective. Not so much the execution and going through a hardship. That's part of it. But the practical application is when you talk about brotherhood and chemistry is
right.
I've said this 1,000 times to our guys. People talk about culture, they talk about chemistry, they talk about connection. At the end of the day, man, it's two things. And I truly believe this. And this word transcends more than just sports. Do I care enough about you to replace or to take the place of what you're going through? And because that's in addition to, your outcome is important to me. And can I cheer for you at my own expense? That's really what I've thought a ton about. For years with what made our teams good, what makes companies good, what makes executives good. Do I care enough about you to trade places with you in order to get the job done, regardless of what you're going through? And can I cheer for you, even if it's at my expense? That's because that's family.
Mm-hmm.
That's some love. That is like the agape thing, right? Because the agape is the unconditional. People talk about love all the time, and they have no idea what I'm talking about because it's so situational for them. Well, if this and this is happening and you meet this and this criteria, okay, well, then I can love you. Cool. That's not the agape love I'm talking about. I'm talking about the unconditional, right? Because there's 3 types, right? There's the eros, that's the physical intimacy, right? Man, I'm in love with you. Then there's the phileo, right? The brotherly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's agape,
right,
which is the unconditional. So the dorms and the rooming situation, in my opinion, is more about establishing family dynamics, because you'll do a lot for your family. You'll right?
Yeah.
If you truly look at somebody as a family,
your life on the line for your family.
Okay, I think ultimately that's more the goal than it is actual crunch time execution.
Yeah, I guess I was more thinking like I think it was the point I want to rest on is when you know how to do something, then you'll become confident in those abilities. So if you know how to be a brother, if you know how to embrace that discomfort, then in those moments, you're retooling your brain so that if there's a time, because there were plenty of times when I was in sports where it was, you see a name on the schedule and you're worried to play that team. You see Michigan this year, you're worried to play that team. And it starts with that worry. But if you know at the time that you can win, you learn how to win. Maybe that's what it more is. Like you're learning how to win. Then there's something within you that could supersede from something smaller. So that's kind of the point that I was starting at. But
like just drawing on an experience of being uncomfortable
is even more powerful because it is laying your life on the line for your family. This is
and it's hard to do without time spent. It really is. Like you have to understand how those folks tick in order to invest.
We'll be right back.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
On Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency TB, Andrew Rogers back in the seats, and we'll be here for a good portion of time now that vacations have come and gone.
Although that was my coach. Apparently, we are going morning camp next week.
Never mind. I take that back. So things will get figured out, and you may have another week of Ravi and I as
till I finally settle in. God, just get the kids back to school, man. Is it that hard?
Are you feeling dinged up at all?
Yeah,
take your car over to Dingman's?
Yeah. How did I not know that? Because never mind. I'm not going to get in.
Let me tell you about Dingman's Give Back program quickly here before we move on. Epic for Girls focuses on leveling the playing field for girls of color in sports. It's one of the things they really like to push over at Dingman's. And that Give Back program is something that you actually get to decide what you donate to, but Dingman's does the donation. It's really cool how they give back to the community. Epic serves as the umbrella organization to amplify sports programming, call attention to the issues of inequity in sports, and address incidences of violence occurring in the world of youth girls sports in Omaha. Just one of the many programs that Dingman's supports. Give them a shout the next time you have a problem with your card. That's dingmans.com. Getting a lot of love from that previous segment that we just had. We had Sasha listening. We have our friends on YouTube also paying attention. Apparently our cameras were on according to TK, and Amazing Daniel didn't want this This is what he says. This is amazing Daniel at his finest right here. Don't remind the teacher to assign homework. That's what he says in response to the camera is still on.
He's different. He did probably jinx my garage, though.
Yeah, and then I'll come over with some hinges.
It's only going to take 15
I got the
minutes.
Gator tool.
Only going to take 15 minutes.
Matt Rule's got plenty of Gator tools in his bag as he puts together what's happening this fall. Is there anything else that you took away from day one that really stood out to you from the stance that everybody at home couldn't get just because they heard the people speak? Being at practice and you were there for an extended length of time, is there anything that you took notice of that you can share without giving away?
Yeah, I don't ever want to betray the trust of being there. I think generally speaking, there's a couple things. Number one, like the tempo, right? I think not wasting time and the combination of drills that go on at a time are I think fascinating. I like the cross training that they do positionally. And then I think it's a pretty good concept, right? Because they've got two groups. They've got the older guys and the younger guys. And I like the philosophy of making sure that you don't miss anything. Because if you go everybody at once, you run the risk of not getting the proper amount of reps while you're doing install. And I think he needs enough young guys to supplement the playing time that you kind of have to do it this way. And it's a lot of teaching and a ton of instruction, and you have to repeat things. But as he'd say, it's good for the coaches too, right? You can't teach enough, according to him. So I like kind of the ushering in of a couple of groups. And I'll say this. I'm not I've fallen for the whole body type thing before. So sometimes I'm fairly dismissive. But this time for me, watching guys just be more trim and sleek is kind of what I care about. Because I said for a couple of years, at least, probably 3, that I felt like Nebraska was too big, too cumbersome up front. They were 12 to 16 pounds on average, heavier than any other team in the Big Ten on the O-line and D-line, especially on the D-line, which I didn't understand, right? I mean, but they just look fit. They just really look trim. I saw Garrett Snodgrass yesterday, and he's with the older guys. It was just good to see him getting reps and be healthy and kind of flying around. And I told him it sounded so corny. I mean, he's probably like, this guy's an absolute weirdo. But I was like, hey, Garrett. He's like, what's up, coach? I said, hey, man, I like the new muscles. He looked at me and he's like, hey, thanks. Gave me a thumbs up. It's just like, and I'm weird like that, right? I like young people, and I'm kind of silly like that. But I mean, he's just like yoked. And I just hadn't seen it before on a lot of different guys. He looked fantastic, and guys that just to hear Coach Rule talk about being in elite fitness, just being in elite shape, is something that I think is pretty spectacular, because I tell our guys a ton. There's just something that invokes fear in other people when they never see you tired, right? Bud Crawford wears on you because he has elite level fitness. He's the same in the first round.
Trim.
He's the same in the first round as he is in the 11th round. You watch him on his stool. If you're even remotely paying any attention to him, you're like, man, this son of a gun could do this for another 7 or 8 rounds. Like, it just does something to you. You ever see guys that we talk about power poses and stuff all the time at practice where we don't want to see you bent over. Like, we have these things that we do. And there's just something about being in elite level shape. And that was kind of my big takeaway.
So there was something that I listened to, at least what Henrich was saying, about when he had to really rebound from his injury. And
looks like a completely different person. Long hair, goatee.
Who he turned to, not only just his teammates, but his faith in that time. Like he said, he got baptized, and that was like a real turning point for him in regards to his bodily recovery. And I'm curious because I know you've been injured before, and you've had an injury that was long-term.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a long-term injury, at least not that I can really think back on. Like I played through a lot of injuries, but I never had one that kept me out.
Mm-hmm.
When you had your long-term injury, if you feel like getting personal, I feel like, I'm going to ask you a question and I'll take heat for it later. Did you turn to anything during that time, or turn like not just to a certain person? Like it doesn't have to be faith. It doesn't have to be, hey, I turned toward like.
Yeah, faith for sure was one, but so it happened a couple of times. And
like, who was really there to help you through those times?
So my first, actually it was the same handful of guys. One guy's kind of become infamous now with some legal troubles, but so first was my trainer at Nebraska, a guy by the name of Doak Ostergaard. So I'm at practice yesterday with Trev, but he was kind of the guy that I learned to trust. I felt like he knew quite a bit. I didn't always know how much he cared about me, but I knew that he was good at his job, right? So that was one of those guys that had developed a reputation for he could fix it, right? He knew what he was
Bob the Builder.
Yeah. And he always had these little inventions and stuff, and he's kind of on the cutting edge back then of rehab and how to make sure that everything was in balance. And I think the other guy that I really, really trusted in, especially when I tore my groin, which was from the bone, was a guy by the name of Doug Anders. And when I elected to not have surgery, after I got back from Charlotte, he basically was just like, trust me. And he's like, I'm going to need 12 or 16 weeks, but, let's try to not do the surgery. And I'd gone to see the guys at Nebraska Orthopedic and Dr. Heiser and those guys. And I said, hey, there's no guarantee that you'll come back with the surgery. So, they kind of left it open-ended. And I just remember.
So you really relied on your trainers in those times.
But it was people that I had relationships with, because I felt like it was really important that I couldn't just be like a number. Like you had to be willing to invest. When Caleb broke the bone in his back, I was very particular about the rehab, because I always say this about people, like when they're hurt, or professional athletes and stuff, and everybody always has these comments, right? Whether it's Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant or, I remember Greg Lloyd went through a stretch where he was hurt with Pittsburgh, and I'm like, you guys don't have any idea how lonely rehab is. Like it's a lonely kind of miserable.
And that's kind of why I wanted to ask.
It's a lonely, miserable place. So if you're not, without some goals or a support group, it's really, really hard.
What about like other family members or teammates?
See, I'm not good with that. I know this is surprising, because I do love, like the family component, but I didn't involve. I'm not very good. I felt like I don't want to involve anybody else in my problems. Right. This one's on me. So I didn't want that burden on. It's already.
Even though nobody would think that.
No, my mom doesn't enjoy seeing me hurt. And certainly my dad was kind of a tough guy. So I didn't really involve them in the rehab process, and certainly not my siblings, because only one lived here. Everybody else is pretty much gone. So no, it's my trainers, man.
Yeah. It is interesting how different people respond to injuries different ways.
It's hard.
And how you need a greater power of some sort, whether it's the trainers for you or faith or whatever.
It can shake you.
To really stay strong and get you through those
Especially
times.
when you see other people get better.
And I like seeing Nick Henrich get over that hump. it'll be really cool to see this year. We'll take a break. Tony Boone up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
And the counter, right hook, the left to right, Errol Spence on inline skates, and the referee has intervened. Mamma mia! Terrence Bud Crawford has made history. Terrence Bud Crawford is the pound-for-pound king.
Welcome back, top of the hour on Coffee and Cream, ESPN Radio 590 here in Omaha, on KFOR in Lincoln, starting now, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. And I'm alongside DB. I'm trying to
What up?
I'm trying to find a good way to match that intro up with that beat and stop at the right time. Haven't been able to nail it yet.
I just listen to the music. That's what I do. Yeah, I kind of got it down now in my head. I hear it enough.
You haven't gotten a chance to really talk about this fight all too much. We touched on it a little bit yesterday in your segment, but
I spent most of the night, Saturday night, on social media talking about it. But I mean, I was just happy. I talked to Severe and Ravi on Thursday. I think it was Thursday when I was in Indy, and my main thing about that, I think I said it would be over in the 11th. I'd picked 10 officially. So I was begging for about another 15, 20 seconds in that 9th round. But
at the same time, it was smart to let Spence.
I just think people just don't
out of that box.
Understand what you have to walk through to beat Bud at anything. He's just his sheer will. I joked when we were younger. I used to call him being stubborn. Now that we're older, he's just determined. And he was so prophetic too. I mean, some of the stuff that he was saying before the fight, he's like, "You're going to say the same thing that everybody else did." Dang, I didn't know that kid was this good. Or, man, he looks one way on film, but when we get in the ring, it's a totally different story. I mean, that's exactly what he said, which is kind of cool when you can call your shot in boxing because it's such a difficult sport.
Well, and this next guest has been a long time coverer of Bud Crawford. He's been a longtime writer at the Omaha World Herald. Local boxing historian Tony Boone joins the show now, and T. Boone is somebody that I haven't gotten to talk to since Omaha hockey. It seems like it's been forever, and I've been following along. He's a big card guy. He likes to collect his
TV.
sports cards.
Yeah,
and he just discovered a booklet of Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout signed cards. So I'm a little jealous. Tony always finds the diamonds in the rough. I don't know how he does it, but COVID was his best friend.
His attention to detail.
That's Tony
That's
Boone.
what it is.
Good morning, man. It's great to talk to you and see you.
Gentlemen, it's good to see you both. How are you?
TV, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
You get it, man. You've done this and followed this a long time. Are you kind of vibing when I said, like maybe 10 years ago, I would call it stubborn with Terrence. Now that we kind of mature a little bit, he's just determined, right? I mean, there's just something about his will to have to be right and to win that is unparalleled.
By far the most competitive person I've ever met. And that comes from being a competitor myself. And it's tough to see people and you're saying, look, that guy's next level. But, Crawford has always been that. I don't know that there's many people that are as self-confident as he is.
Yeah.
But a lot of that comes from doing the work. And that's one of the things that I told someone a long time ago when, this run of his kind of really got started was, I don't know how you beat him because you have to be willing to go to that depth to get to where he's at.
No question.
He obviously he has great physical attributes, great balance. The guy's got freakishly long arms for a dude his height, big hands at the ends of the arms. Obviously, incredibly skilled. He's honed his craft over the years, and then on top of that, he's willing to put in the work behind the scenes and in training camp. And how are you going to get past a guy like that who is already physically better than you, and he's going to outwork you at the same time?
Tony, are you vibing with me? There's something about some boxers, I don't know what it is, where they have that type of skin that swelling is concealed. They're not easy cutters. They weather the storm just because of kind of how the skin is. I know it sounds weird, but he just is one of those fighters that it's not that he doesn't get hit, because sometimes he does. I remember, as you do, people would joke, "Oh, he gets hit too much at this level and not good, this and that." And I'm like, we'll see. But he just has the makeup with the epidermis where it's like he's just different. He just is uniquely DNA built.
I'm sure that I'm wrong on this, but I can only really remember him getting cut once, and that was from a butt.
Yeah.
I don't remember which fight it was, just off the top of my head, but it wasn't anything serious that, he was in jeopardy of, it getting out of hand to where he couldn't fight through it. And, God knows he wouldn't have fought through it if he'd had to anyway. But yeah, he does seem to have that attribute as well. And, I don't know if that's just a God-given thing or what leads to that. But also helps when you're good and responsible enough defensively that you don't take clean shots, not that he hasn't, taken one here or there, over the past few years, but, as we saw the other night, he's incredibly good in tight spaces of making sure that, his shot gets off clean and the other one coming back doesn't in return. And that's part of the reason why things went quickly in the direction that they did the other night. He was able to manage distance.
All I could think of was Kill Bill, Uma Thurman getting out of the coffin where she's just like punching and it's like 4 inches, but it's with some force, right? His ability to hurt you from close proximity without needing much room is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I think that was a big telling point the other night. Spence never found a distance where he could be comfortable, and Terrence has proven time and time again that he can be comfortable at any distance. I don't know that there's ever been anybody that I can think of, at least, that's been that good at being able to, create an angle that they can get a clean shot off, no matter, what the distance is, between the two fighters. He's just naturally, talented in that way.
Tony, I'm genuinely curious. Where does this fight rank among the best of Bud's fights? Is there a time, and maybe it's because it's recent, but the buildup was there. Is there a time you remember a fight being more anticipated than this one?
I would say if there was one, as far as the anticipation goes, it would have to be the Gamboa fight. And that's only because it was his first one as a world champion, and it was his first one in Omaha. So the buzz locally was obviously huge. I don't know that because of the buildup of it, I don't know that the general public knew enough about Gamboa and how good he was and what he had done in his career, the way that they, were given all this information about Spence ahead of time. So I would say that the general public was more informed of Spence going into this fight than what they would have been in Gamboa going into that one. But it was a big deal. And at the time of the year also kind of helped out a little bit. It was the weekend right after the College World Series. So, the town was kind of hopping anyway. And, we were going to get a chance to see our hometown guy, fight as a world champion for the first time, here in our own backyard. So I'd say that would probably be the closest thing that I could think of to this. This one was obviously, next level just because the guys were both considered pound for pound top 5 guys going into Saturday night. And usually when that's the case, you don't see that go as one-sided as it did. But, who would have thought that, he was going to land something that clean in the second round that was going to quickly turn that the way it did. And, once he got trucking, there wasn't really anything that Spence could do to derail it because, he's pretty much a one-dimensional fighter. And if he can't go at you, then, what's he going to do? And Crawford's unique in the sense that he can have a plan B, C, and D, and he can make it up on the fly because other boxers aren't gifted with that. And Spence is one of them.
He's a good kind of stubborn too, isn't he, Tony? Because I think
sure.
He always does this thing. I can think of it with Horn, Postal, Beltran. He did it. I knew about the 220 mark in the second round. Spence was trying to crowd him in the corner, and Terrence just pushed him off, like just a subtle forearm. It's about 40 seconds left in the third round, and Spence tried to lean, and Bud just stopped him dead in his tracks. He has this thing where he knows how you think the fight is going to go, bigger, stronger guy. And it's almost like there's something in him where he's like, okay, I'm going to show you that I can bully this guy if I want to. He is ridiculously and deceptively strong. Where do you think that leverage and that strength comes from given his frame?
Well, I think that first of all, he has really good balance. And I don't think, and I was nice to hear the Showtime guys who were actually calling his fight for the first time the other night, bring up his wrestling background. That's a sport that takes incredible balance if you're going to be good at it. And it's something that he's been around a lot. I know that his sons, also wrestle. So, I think that having something like that and also being in the gym, as a boxer since age 7 has helped out with that as well. Being able to do that, I think, allows you to get leverage. And here's the thing that I think that people maybe don't understand about Crawford. When he became a world champion, he was cutting everything to get to 135, and he wasn't like lifting, or there wasn't like the definition that you see with him at 147 pounds wasn't there at 135, because he was, basically this skinny guy who was just, all God-given talent at that point. And as he's kind of moved up in weight, he's been able to pack on, some added muscle. And I think that's made him stronger. And as he mentioned, accurately after the fight, that everyone thinks that they're stronger than I am until they get in there and they find out that I'm the stronger fighter every single time. That really showed itself the other night. He looked like he was every bit as strong as Spence. And that was the big thing going in from the other side, was that Spence was going to be too big for him and he's just going to shove Crawford around. And that didn't happen at all.
It's weird. Do you think people realize that Bud can walk around anywhere between low 160s and 170 and not bat an eye? Cutting weight is not easy for him sometimes either to get to 147, but he's never too far away where he has to starch himself. He's got this whole gradual thing that he's really good at.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that's going to allow him to continue on as he continues to age here too, is that he lives pretty clean outside of the ring. This isn't an Ricky
100%.
Hatton, Arturo Gatti thing where he's walking around at 180 and then cutting to 147 like those two guys used to do, and it's more gradual. It's, as you mentioned, not easy necessarily, but something that he can, do a little bit at a time. And by the time he's done with camp, he's about right where he needs to be. And it was tough, I know, for him to make 135 that last time. And I know that he was ready to get out of 140 when he did as well. It sounds like this might have been, the swan song at 147 as well. And if that's the case, then, there's still going to be even more room there to see what else he can build upon physically. If he's going to try to go up at the next weight class, which it sounds like, he might be willing to give a shot at. At least that's what he was saying while Spence was getting counted during the 7th round when he was looking
which is
at
unbelievable.
Yeah. That just tells you how locked in that guy was. He just lands a double right hook. Spence is on the canvas, struggling to get up.
Yep.
And he's looking over at Jermel Charlo in row 1.
You're
saying,
next.
You're next. You're next.
Oh, Tony.
Unbelievably locked in at that point.
Tony, okay, so I heard you say this. I think you were with Matty D and Robbie when you were saying this before the fight, but you wanted to see him get the recognition like the best of the best in their respective sports got when they were playing while active in career mode. Now, does that finally happen?
I hope so, but I don't know. I think there are still those that are, boxing is not a big thing, or that for whatever reason, what he did isn't as good because it's in weight classes. You're not fighting against everybody. You're just fighting the best guys in your class. I heard a lot of that back when we were at the World Herald and doing our, top 100 athletes of all time, updating that list back in 2015. At that point, I was arguing that with Crawford already. And at this point,
rightfully so. I remember that.
He was a 2-division champion at the time we were doing this. So this is after he had moved up to 140 in 2014. He was the reigning fighter of the year. He had already won championships at 2 weight classes and was the lineal champion at 135 when he left that. So there's already a nice established achievement list at that point. And I was saying already that you need to understand how unique this is, especially in an area where, high level boxers have not come from, and do it justice. And I said, so you don't start at the bottom of that list at 100, you start at the top and you start working your way down. And I'll just be straight up. I was pretty upset where he landed. And it wasn't just him either. Like Alex Gordon, I think, was 2 spots ahead of him. And how you take a guy who's like a multiple-time Gold Glove winner and an all-star in a truly global sport, and he sits back in the mid-30s, I don't know. But that's where they had Crawford at the end of this list too. But I was saying that, like, even at that point of his career, he's already like tracking towards Hall of Fame status. And, if he didn't have it already at that point as a 2-weight class champion, he certainly did by the time he left 140 pounds, and everything that he's done after that has just been gravy. And he knows it too. I mean, Crawford was saying a long time ago that I've already done enough to make the Hall of Fame, and he was right. And everything he's done now has just extended the talk to be more about like, where is he all time instead of just like, where is he right now? Because I think that, while he's been, a top 5 pound for pound fighter, and I have argued that Crawford was the number 1 fighter in the world the day that Andre Ward decided he didn't want to fight anymore. When he retired, Crawford was number 1, and he has done nothing to lose that spot. I just think that everyone gets infatuated with the next shocking thing or the next thing that really grabs us in the moment. And nothing against Neo Inoue, who looked great, earlier this week when he fought early in the morning. I even actually stayed up overnight to watch that fight. Spectacular, but what did he do to pass Crawford in that moment? I don't know. There are less, elite guys at 118 and 122 pounds in the area that he fights at than there are at 147, which has been one of the most stacked weight classes that are there. So I don't know why anyone would put him there, but Crawford's never done anything from the time that Andre Ward retired to lose that spot. Like, remind me of the time where Crawford looked bad in the ring. No, he's knocked out. He's knocked out everyone since he moved up to 140, other than Postall, and that's only because that was his first unification bout, and he took his foot off the gas at the end because he didn't need it. But I tell you what, Crawford now, Postall doesn't get out of the midway point of that fight. Probably doesn't get out of the 5th round.
And no disrespect to anyone, not even Uncle Johnny, but it's and however you want to do it, it's Gibson, Sayers, and then it's got to be there when that list comes out again, because I think it's every 10 years.
That's what the first one was in 2005. And so, yes, we redid it in 2015. Whether it'll continue, I don't know. There's a different sports editor now, and I don't know what the staff is half the size of what it was. And a lot of people that were involved are no longer there. So I'm not sure what they will do with that. I would hope it would continue because it is a good talking piece or whatever. I was arguing already then, just to make it completely clear. I was already saying that he's 4. I'm like, you go. I'm like, you went. I go, is he Gibson or Sayers? No. Grover, Cleveland, Alexander, probably not. He's a Hall of Fame guy with 1 billion wins in a completely segregated game in the early 1900s. Okay, and then you get to Boozer at 4, and I'm like, okay, here's a guy who had a great career, was a high draft pick, won a gold medal on a team that he wasn't a star on, won an NBA title as a bench player in the last year of his career as a pro. And I'm like, yeah, that's about where we're at right now with the 2-division champion or whatever. And again, no disrespect to Johnny, who's number 5, but I already felt at that point that Crawford had already surpassed him because he already was being considered one of the top fighters in the game, and was clearly, in a spot that you weren't going to be able to take away the achievements that he already had in the moment. Right now, I think that there's a Mount Rushmore of 3 in Omaha, and Crawford's right there with the other 2.
Let me get you out of here on this, TB. Spence rematch at 54, Boots or Charlo? What would the fanatic, who would Tony Boone like to see?
Oh, me, Charlo for sure, because I'm all about the history of it, which is exactly what Crawford was talking about in the middle of the 7th round there. He is going to be 36 this year. He
September 30th
probably is already in this longer than he wanted to be. Although I told somebody this past week that I don't know how he ever really gets out of it, because there's always going to be someone talking that he's going to want to shut up. The competitive part of him is going to be the hard part to shut down. But Charlo makes the most sense. The problem is he's already got a fight, a huge one, lined up for later this year, which means that you're sitting on the sidelines and knowing that fight against Canelo is not going to go Jermell Charlo's way. What kind of condition is he going to be in to come back to 154? And if that goes poorly for him against Canelo at a 2-weight classes higher than he is, how excited is he going to be to be strapping it up against Crawford in the fight after that, knowing that he probably is coming off of a beating and maybe just signed up for another one? Because if people want to make fun of the resumes of the 2 guys that fought on Saturday night, take a good look at how Jermell Charlo became the undisputed champion at 154.
Right there, 100.
Yeah, there are no names in that weight class, and that's the reason why he has all those belts. And
if you're Spence, you shut it down.
You certainly don't take the rematch.
I mean, Derek James has got to take a good look at where Spence is physically.
Oh, I agree. This is a guy that and this wasn't talked about enough, I don't think. I mean, he was in as many bad car accidents going into last Saturday night as he had been in fights since like 2020. It was like 2 and 2 fights, 2 bad car accidents, and the detached retina on top of that. Yeah, I think that you really need to take a look at where you're at and what you have left to accomplish. And the fact that Crawford is ready to move up too, I think maybe changes the plan for Spence. If his idea was that he was going to go up and he was going to be the guy at 154 and Bud was going to stay at 147, then maybe we're talking about something different. But when you got to go through that guy again at the next weight class, I just don't see any point of continuing past that point unless you really do feel physically okay and you can get yourself back into the shape where you were the guy that you were before Saturday night, not the guy that walked out of the ring on Saturday night.
Excellent stuff. Tony Boone, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time to join the show. We will talk to you again soon.
You bet. We can always talk fights whenever you want to, guys.
Thanks, TB.
All right. That's Tony Boone at Tony G. Boone on Twitter. It's great to see him. Great to hear from him. Longtime writer at the Omaha World Herald. You know, I mean, he's just a boxing historian to the area. A lot of stuff in there. And I learned a lot there, too, because as I told you, and I told this to Ravi too yesterday, I'm like, I'm a beginner when it comes to boxing. Like, boxing was never prevalent in
TB was
St.
one of the
Louis
first guys that I could actually, this is early in
now, does it help that Bud is from the area that boxing is so popular?
I think I was just going to say, TB's one of the first guys that I actually could get historical with locally. Because, you know, I didn't meet Severe until 05, which was about the same time, but for a while, boxing was just in like small circles. And I think Tony helped bring it to like the forefront. Some kicking and screaming begrudgingly didn't want to let him, but I just remember him being one of the first guys. It didn't matter if I wanted to talk boxing in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Like, TB was that dude. He still is that dude. He was totally that dude. And, you know, he and I have gone round and round on some fighters and who we like, who we don't like, styles and stuff. He's super well versed.
Now, talk about other things that are must watch. It's from the original 1923 stands to today's 90,000 fan venue. In the Deed, the Glory Memorial Stadium reveals the storied history, evolution, and significance of this stadium that is synonymous with Saturdays in Nebraska. It's Nebraska Public Media's newest local sports documentary. It features interviews with T.O., Eric Crouch, Trev Alberts. Are those familiar names?
They are.
What about sports reporter Mike Babcock? Is he a well-known commodity?
He is.
He is featured in that documentary as well. It honors the 100th anniversary of the stadium, built to honor the men and women who served in World War I. Sunday.
Hope somebody worth a darn is narrating that thing.
I don't know. Who do you think it is?
I don't know. No idea.
Omar?
Yeah. Omar's coming.
Omar's coming.
Number 12, here he comes.
Sunday, August 13th.
I feel like I should be whistling.
7 p.m.
Omar's coming.
Sunday, August 13th at 7 p.m. on Nebraska Public Media and Facebook Live. Visit nebraskapublicmedia.org/Memorial Stadium. We'll take a quick break. Let's change gears and talk MLB trade deadline.
Let's get it.
When we come back. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back, Coffee and Cream. DB, Andrew Rogers, Shane Schillerberg. Happy to have you with us. ESPN Radio, 590 here in town, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, the Hurrdat Sports YouTube page. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Before we get to the MLB trade deadline, let's take a moment and tell you about the Omaha Storm Chasers, because they have been moving and grooving. They won 4 out of 6 against Columbus last week. They take on the Louisville Bats on the road starting today. And then their next homestand is against the Iowa Cubs. That's August 8th through the 13th. That week is also a big week for golf fans in town, because that is the Pinnacle Bank Championship over at Indian Creek. So there's a lot to do and a lot taking place next week here in Omaha. But make sure you give the Storm Chasers a shout. Bark in the Park, that is Wednesday the 9th. There are $2 deal days. Corn Chasers night on Friday. Family and Faith night Saturday, and then it's Family Fun Day on Sunday. So just a lot to do over at the Omaha Storm Chasers. Now, we mentioned yesterday Nicky Lopez getting traded out of the Royals system. Tampa Bay Ray, right? Did I get that right? I'm trying to follow along with all these trade deadline news.
See you later.
Yeah, it's only a couple that I care about.
Well, I was telling Robbie, too, yesterday, there's just not a lot of moves that have moved the needle for me outside of Scherzer. Like Savali yesterday was a big one. I mean, he was the Guardians' hottest pitcher. He's going to the Rays. Kind of a weird move for the Guardians after losing Bieber.
Yeah.
So that stuff was a little weird to me, but good on the Rays for picking up a guy that has a really nice arm. But aside from that, like Mark Canha to the Brewers, like what does that do for you?
Well, the one that I'm potentially interested in would be Verlander. Would Verlander be on the move to LA? The problem is he's reading yesterday. Like if he gets into the option for next year, if he gets to 140 innings, I think you're on the hook for $90 million. So,
is it worth the squeeze?
Yeah, and he'll be 41. But that one kind of.
But still, when was the last time he won a Cy Young? It was recent, right?
Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, with the yeah.
So like he's still going.
I don't know about that. Like he's formidable, but like 2 years removed when a guy's that old for Verlander, I don't know if I would call that still going. But I mean, hopefully. But if they don't move him, it would be interesting because I just think what the Mets are trying to do with their payroll, like they've obviously waved the white. It seems as though they've waved the white flag. Unless they think they can piecemeal it with what they've got going, but there's just too much ground for them to make up. I didn't expect them to be sellers at the deadline.
No, not going into this season. I mean, people had them as early shots at a World Series.
Yeah.
Verlander, though, 18-4 last year.
Yeah.
1.75 ERA. This year, he's 6-5. 3.15 ERA. That is a pretty big leap. And age could be a factor.
I mean, 140 innings next year gets you to like. I don't know what it is, 90 or 92 mil. That's a lot to take on. But I want another
going
bat.
18-4 though.
I want another bat or a frontline starter. You'll get Kershaw back in a couple of weeks.
Well, you guys were in deep talks with the Cardinals about Arenado for a while there.
Dodgers got a lot of prospects too.
Well, and that's the other reason why the Dodgers really tick me off. Is because they have the ability to spend, but they're also a developmental system where they can really put together a nice package to spend.
Who's in an interesting spot? If you're the Yankees and you're 10 out, are you selling?
Am I selling if I'm the Yankees?
Doesn't even seem right.
No.
You're not making up 10 games, though. You're just not healthy enough.
Not in the East. The East is too strong this year to make up 10 games.
I mean, and here we are saying that about a team that's 55 and 51 or whatever.
How many games back are they? You said 10?
10.
10, and the Cardinals are 11 back, and they've won 47.
Get up, baby.
It's just, it's tough.
Where are the Yankees at in the wild card race?
I'm not sure on the...
Maybe like 4 or 5 back? Because the Angels, I think, are 5.
They're only 3.5 back, but they'd have to pass 6 teams. Right, because you got the
leap.
Yeah,
it's a big leap. I don't know if I'm selling though. If I'm the Yankees, I'm probably seeing what I can still do with that lineup. Volpe hasn't been anything special.
No,
I mean,
not after the first weekend when we watched him steal bases over and
Mm-hmm.
over and over on loop, and I'm like, are we really doing this in the first week of baseball?
Well, we were also talking about our buddy from Tampa that was our Cy Young winner that super early.
Yeah. Well, nothing hurts me as bad as what's going on in Seattle. Even though, don't look now, only 5 back.
Well, and losing Sewald wasn't that bad because you still had Andres. Can't remember his last name. Starts with an M. Munoz. I got there. But Sewald going to Arizona is a very good addition for that team that is still on the fringe of holding on to the West.
I still think Seattle may make a run.
They could. They easily could. Castillo looks really good right now on the bump. They kept their pitchers.
Now he actually looks like a Cy Young.
Their offense has been okay. Rodriguez is starting to heat back up, so that's a good thing for them.
They're still minus 10 in run differential, though, if you can believe that.
That's shocking to me.
But it's so crowded right there in the West, and apparently the Angels didn't get the memo. Once they pull kind of Ohtani off the market for trade talks, they won 7 out of 10 or whatever. Like it's pretty thick up there.
Who did they add into their rotation?
So you've got
Giolito. Yeah, that was a big one.
So
because I like Giolito.
The window's done with the White Sox now because we're okay because this
Uh-huh.
is like the 6th year that I've had the conversation about.
Their window's up, and Tim Anderson could even be on the move here soon.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Don't look now.
Well, you're gonna have to take what comes with it.
Don't look now though. But the Blue Jays just lost a shortstop.
Now
Not to
with
say that they're gonna jump all into the Anderson train, but I would rather have Tim Anderson for a year if I need to take on whatever than I would to have Paul DeYoung or Tommy Edman if I'm making a short-term deal knowing Bichette's coming back. Because I can keep Tim Anderson and move him over to second base. Who's the second baseman right now for the Blue Jays?
Well,
because they were hoping Biggio would be the guy.
And I told you, I know you think I was just hard on him. I just didn't get it. And I didn't love Bichette either. But right now they've got to play Whit Merrifield.
But he's been.
I mean, at second base, yeah.
Right, but
right. We joke about that like 2 months ago. I'm like, this is
the Whit of old?
Yeah, it was right before the All-Star break, so it wasn't that long ago. But I was like, wait a minute,
because last year
All-Star
was bad.
I was like 284, whatever he was hitting at the time. I was like, was this the same guy that everybody was booing in Toronto when they acquired him from Kansas City?
Yeah, last year he was batting 281. But it wasn't a good 281 because he only played 44 games last year.
Yeah.
So it was a small sample size. But that was coming off batting 240 in Kansas City. So they thought, well, I guess people of Toronto knew what they were getting at the time. But I wasn't thinking he was going to bounce back and bat 303 through the first 100 games here.
So, I mean,
that's pretty shocking.
You've got the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Angels, and then the Yankees in that wild card deal. And this 3.5 back are the Mariners. Now they got to jump some teams too, but it is so crowded at the top. I just actually, I mean, all things considered, I'm just happy to see the Diamondbacks cool off a little.
For the Dodgers,
yeah, because that was starting to be a little bothersome. Now the Dodgers act like they don't want to play that well right now either, but I think everybody's kind of struggling in the West. I think if you look and you see that the Padres are 52 and 55 with that payroll, I mean, how upset are you right now? And you've got a good manager. Maybe Melvin's one of those guys that can't manage a lot of good players. Maybe he needs to be back in Oakland where he was winning manager of the years with upstarts.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know why.
And everybody would tell me for like 3 years, the most underrated player in Major League Baseball. This when Chapman was still an A. And I was like, if you guys keep telling me that these last 3 or 4 years, how underrated is he?
Everybody.
At some point, Matt Chapman is just good. But like, I mean, you're having to count on guys like Gary Sanchez and
no big deal.
And Juan Soto hasn't been anything special there either.
Not for all that money. And remember, he was kind of pegged as can't miss. Now he's still got a 930 OPS, but I mean, 20 home runs, 64, 65 RBIs. It's not. This is not the Soto. I think
not eye-opening.
Not for that payroll.
The trade deadline closes at 5 p.m. tonight. We'll see if another big deal happens. I'm actually on the side that there won't be another big trade. I'm going to say that a big name isn't on the move.
We'll see what happens with Verlander. That's about the only one that has my attention.
And I'll see what the Blue Jays do at the shortstop position. When we come back, the Sports Six Pack presented by Zipline Brewing.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Time now for the Sports Six-Pack on Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
Six-packs waiting for us over at headquarters, guys. That's a good thing.
Is that right?
Our friends over at Zipline hooking us up, and they are letting us try their new can opener tropical ale.
It's over at headquarters?
It is.
Isn't this headquarters?
Maybe for us, but not for everybody else.
I need to shoot over there anyway. Need some of my
The
equipment.
new Summer Crusher brewed with guava and lemon, perfect for a hot summer day. Try out the can opener tropical ale at your favorite beer store or now at all Zipline locations.
Does Shane still not know what guava is?
Shane does not know what guava is.
All I want to know is, can we do the six-pack every day? Because I just want to keep drinking.
All right. I believe
every single day.
I believe over at headquarters they have flyers for AA, Shane, if you are.
So is it on our floor or is it upstairs where the important people
I think it's in the
are?
fridge. I think it's waiting for us.
Yeah. All right. All right.
I'll take that.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
No, wait, Shane, start reading.
Do you know how long it took me to figure out that door opened? And then they just took the door off, and now you can just see in the
right.
Would that be the lounge?
I think it's the lounge.
Lounge. Yeah. I walked in there the other day. There was some meeting going on behind that first door. It was shut. I was like, there's a lot of people in here yapping. It's loud. Like, oh shit. God, I'm not invited to this one. I don't think I'm supposed to be in here.
Question number 1.
Here we go.
That tastes good. Kyle and Lincoln, who from Nebraska Football Fan Day would you want an autograph from if you were pinpointing the one guy that would have a big NFL career and that John Hancock would be worth something someday?
Wait a minute. One more time. Slow motion better than no motion.
You want me to read all of that again? Whose autograph do you want from Fan Day? Who do you think's going to be the big
name,
money,
the guy that to turn out in the NFL someday?
Yeah, they're John Hancock going to be worth something.
Oh, I don't know.
Like who's going to be the Cam Taylor Britt of old?
Who's the next?
I know a guy that for some reason we don't seem to talk about very much. It's Quentin Newsom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That dude never comes up.
He's a baller.
Are we taking him for granted?
No.
Are we taking him for granted? Maybe.
Because he's pretty good.
He would be a name. A future name, we mentioned him already once, is Tristan Albano, being a Sunday guy.
How about Princewell? You going to buy some stock in
Buy some
Princewell?
stock in Princewell?
Huh?
Lenhart?
Cam? Bam? Bam, 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 bam. I don't know if Cam has the upside that Princewell does. Princewell is really lean.
What if Gilbert has an insane year?
Yeah, I looked at his frame yesterday and I was like, how many tacklers will turn down seeing that guy in the open field? I don't know. He's got to turn into a guy I can count on, though.
I get that.
Just, you know what I mean? Like, just bringing it every day. Safely? Fudge, I don't know. Man, I'll take Q. I'll take Newsom.
I think that would be the safe pick.
I'll take Q. Plus, I like him. We're not going to expound, Shane. Read the next question.
I'm trying to nurse over here.
You probably are.
Will there be a team that makes a bigger move at the deadline than the Rangers? Probably not.
Oh, thanks for answering the question. I guess we can move on to 3.
Dude, you know me. I'm go Rangers. I have them in the playoffs. So
I think they were the only team that bought properly. So, no, I will say they are the only team that does that.
They bought property?
Properly.
Oh, well, don't let him get you to go there. You know he's crazy. Oh, come on, Shane.
No, I'm just drinking.
Oh, I know.
Question number 3.
I think you're drinking all the time.
Okay, there's speculation that at least 4 teams could be added to the Big Ten. You are the Big Ten commish for a day. Whoever you invite has to say yes. How high are you going, and what teams are joining?
They have to say yes.
Can I take teams out too?
No, I'm keeping it easy.
Like, so I couldn't remove Northwestern if I wanted to, or Rutgers if I wanted to.
Let's say for this discussion, no.
Okay. So if I'm adding teams,
and they have to say yes.
We talked about 2. Yeah. So we talked about 2 in Oregon and Washington. Notre Dame would be another. And give me one of the ACC schools.
Yeah. So
I'll add 4.
I'm out on the ACC.
You don't want Missouri?
I'm out. For my pod discussion, because since I've thought about this 1,000 times, give me all Pac-12. So Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Notre Dame.
So 3 Pac-12s and then
the Notre Dame,
the one team that is.
Still I know everybody's like it's Stanford, but I have my reasons. I'll take Stanford, and I get it, but I want 3 really good conferences. So and potentially 4, because the Big 12 is going to come out okay. We left them for dead. They look really good right now, especially basketball wise.
And that's
okay. So
where they thrive.
So football isn't bad either,
right? But basketball is the Big 12.
So let's hope there's some semblance of the Big 10. The Big 12, the SEC, and some coastal deal. I would like 4 20-team conferences. I'm okay with that. So
you are the Big Ten commissioner.
And plus, I'm still thinking travel too. Right? I mean, I'll take those 4.
Go ahead, Shane.
I like that.
Question number 4.
All right, Kevin in Omaha with the rebrand to the X. What is the one thing you wish Elon would do to make the adjustment easier?
Elon.
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Elon. Like a lot in?
Like maybe make a better car?
I don't even care about the X.
I don't either.
I don't care about the change.
The X looks
the
stupid.
The only thing that like it's messing with my eyes. I wish they would have kept the color of the blue. Like I put the logo whatever you want. It doesn't bother me too much. But it looks too much like the Athletic logo. So I get mixed up.
When you go to it, is it still kind of there, but then it goes to the X? Because that's the way it is on mine. I don't know if it's updated all the way.
No, mine's the X.
I don't know. I wish my tweet deck was a little cleaner.
You mean your X deck?
But that's okay. I mean, Jacob fixed it for me the other day.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, that was nice of him.
He was I'm Stu. Like, I couldn't figure it out. And he's busy talking, having a conversation. I hand him my laptop. He does a couple things with one hand, and he's like, done. He's like, oh, here, got it. I was like, yeah, I know where I'm not good. It's okay.
Oh, don't sell yourself short. I do that all the time.
Yeah, you have plenty of that.
Question number 5.
All right, Jordan in Omaha. Who do you think has the best chance at being the top defensive team in the West this year? Iowa is the obvious choice, but could I convince you that it's Illinois?
Yes.
You could convince me, especially with the addition of Jim Leonard.
Yeah, and you have Randolph and Jerzon up front. Yeah, you could convince me.
Now, it does come down to the players on the field, so advantage Iowa over Illinois.
I think they'll be right there.
Mm-hmm.
You could convince me. I would probably take Iowa, but I would listen long and hard.
I would listen to Illinois too, and it's really because of Leonard.
Bielema gave me the creeps at Big Ten Media Days. Last time I sat in that building and listened to him, he knew way more than I thought. So
he knew more than you wanted him to know.
Yeah. So I was having flashbacks. And Ferentz was really good too. My man was telling jokes. Kirk Ferentz was telling jokes. You know he feels good about his team.
Kirkland was telling jokes?
Yes, he was. It's a very good brand at Costco. Thank you for the shout out.
Number 6.
I was just being told that yesterday that ice cream is legit. Kirkland brand ice cream from Costco is the thing to get.
Okay.
Really?
I'll be the judge of that.
Okay.
All right, now you can add one thing courtesy of a furniture store, we'll say NFM for the sake of this question, after they tagged Ty Robinson yesterday to make your dorm room more comfortable during fall camp. What are you adding?
Do I have to be practical?
I feel like it has to fit in the room.
Pillows. Good pillows. For whatever the reason, man, I just think pillows are more important than
PlayStation 5.
PlayStation 5. You're not going to have a lot of time to do that. I think your free time may be a little overrated.
I don't know. If you sleep 2 hours a day, you're
What
good.
about a lazy boy? What about a recliner?
Recliner?
That'd be nice.
Maybe.
It could be a group thing because like your roommate can share it too.
Or like a nice futon or a bean bag.
Yeah, one of those like knapsacks.
I was a big bean bag guy when I was a kid. I don't know. Probably pillows or something like that.
That's a strong choice. A pillow matters.
Dude.
Pillows matter. The pillow that I had in Louisville.
Way more than a mattress.
I should have sent it to you. It was plastic. You pick up the pillow on the hotel bed, and I had my own pillow with me, but I was moving pillows around.
Oh, you're a My Pillow guy?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I was so disappointed in my pillows at the hotel in Indy, but it was across the parking lot from Lucas Oil, so I had very few complaints. Seriously.
All right.
Literally a walk across the parking lot.
We got to get this in. I want to talk to you about Pratt Dental. Dr. Pratt is the only dentist in Nebraska that provides the service of BioClear. What is BioClear? Well, it is an ultra-thin tooth-shaped form that allows permanent reconstruction of teeth with composite. That's BioClear Matrix. The BioClear method, a modern smile design, can correct many aesthetic dilemmas in permanent and less invasive manners. Visit them. 308-221-2800 on the phone or on their webpage. That's Pratt Dental. That'll do it for the show today. We'll see you tomorrow.